Expanding out to 60 days, again, you can still see where that band of heavy rain was. But again, everybody seeing a pretty good amount of rain.
60 days, again, you can
All
still
that
see
those yellow areas are
it
8 to 10 inches of
was.
precipitation. So you can see a good chunk of northern and western Kentucky in that color. Again, far eastern Kentucky a little bit drier, but still 3, 4 inches of precipitation, a little below normal. I think some of that's a little spotty with the mountains out there. I don't think everybody's been as dry as that Pike County gauge. The mountains, tend to rain shadows and stuff like that. So a little bit uneven out there, but overall, past 2 months have been pretty good. If you switch to the when we switch to the 90 days, the colors change to the scale, but the numbers don't change too much because that's where we're pulling in that August where we were just exceptionally dry, the driest August on record for the state. So, but still with the wet September and October, it's really pulled the numbers back up. So you can see a lot of 10, 11, 12-inch precipitation totals across central and western Kentucky. And get out and purchase a little drier, but you're still talking 8, 9 inches of precipitation and still 7, 8 inches of precipitation out in far eastern Kentucky. So all in all, precipitation wise, looking pretty good. And this is just showing the percent of normal for precipitation. You can see for the past 30 days, you're looking at that band of heavy rain stretching from Owensboro to Lexington. You're 200 to 300% of normal. Rest of the state, everybody is above normal except right out there in eastern Kentucky. Like I said, it's been a little drier out there. You got the 60 days again. Everybody well above normal for the state, and again, eastern Kentucky a little bit drier right there. And then we go out to 90 days. Like I said, you start getting into you get dry August. So that band still showing up above normal. And then you see where some places were drier with that dry August. But again, that's kind of an artifact of that dry period we had and any dry and drought conditions. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but those have been really wiped out with this rain. Um, for the state, Kentucky averaged just shy of 5 inches of precipitation for the month of October, which is about a 1.5 inches above normal and the 12th wettest October on record. And so far this fall, looking at September and October, the Commonwealth has averaged just over 9 inches of rain, which is just about 2 inches above normal for those 2 months. And for the year, if you remember, before we got into that dry patch that started in the middle of July, we were extremely wet. And so for the year, the state averaging just below 55 inches of rain for the year. That's 12.5 inches above normal. And right now we're sitting as the second wettest year on record, or third, depending on the numbers you look at, with the government being shut down and kind of having to pull numbers from a few different places to put them together. So it kind of, depending on what I looked at, it was second or third. It was a pretty tight spread there for the top of the wettest year on record. So, but overall, regardless of whether it's second or third, it's been a very wet year. Even with that dry period we had, it's been very wet. And that brings us this side with this graph. And what we're looking at here is just precipitation totals. I pulled in the 8 wettest years, January through October, and then also added this year, 2024, 1930, which is this down here at the bottom. That's the driest year on record, just to give a little indication. This black year is the average. And this tannish line here is last year. So you can see last year we hung pretty close to normal. And then we had another drought in September, October last year. You can see that where it's flattened out. This year is the purple line, and you can see it. We started off kind of in the middle of this pack. And then from about April through July, this year was the wettest year on record or close to it. And then we had the dry late July through mid-September, and it flattened out. And now we're right back into the thick of it for wettest year on record. And if you look 2018 and 2011 are the two wettest years on record, and we are basically tied with them right now. So it is not out of the question that we could end up having the wettest year on record still. So, but it looks like, barring it drying out again, we're probably going to be in the top 5 or 10 for the wettest year on record, easily. So, pretty impressive, especially with that early season wetness. Switching over and looking at temperatures, October was warm. We averaged 59, just over 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 1.7 degrees above normal. This was the 33rd warmest October on record. So it was warm, but not exceptionally warm. And you can and look up above the top picture on the left is the over or average temperatures. You can see it was warmer out in the western half of the state. Eastern half of the state was about normal temperature wise. And top right is looking at the average high temperatures, and you can see that it was dry across most of the, or not dry, it was about average temperatures across most state, and only in the western Kentucky was it a little above normal for highs. The low temperatures were what was above normal, and you can see most of the state was above normal, anywhere from 0 degrees or normal to 4 degrees above normal there over in the Fort Knox area. So once again, the low temperatures were what really pulled the average temperatures up more so than the high temperatures. Looking at stream flows are looking pretty good across the state. If you look out in eastern Kentucky, you see a couple of these red dots over here. And that is the middle fork of the Kentucky River, and that is the Loviza Fork. And both of those have U.S. Army Corps reservoirs on them that have not started going down to winter pool yet. Typically in October, all the core lakes drop from summer pool down to winter pool, so they have room to absorb floodwaters during the winter and spring. And I'm not sure if it has to do with the shutdown or if they're or something else, but the lakes in those two watersheds haven't started releasing yet. Not too atypical. They tend to kind of switch it up depending on a variety of reasons. But that's the reason those really aren't dry. It's just a man-made issue, but and I shouldn't say issue. It's just a man-made low because there's still plenty of water flowing in those rivers. They're just lower than where they normally are when they are releasing. Also, still seeing lower flows up on the Ohio River. You can see much below normal Ashland, and still over at Markland Dam and down in Hancock County. The High River is still a little low, but nothing too bad. There's and no navigation issues to speak of. Look at soil moisture. For the most part, we are in great shape. The model's showing a little dryness up in the northern part of the state. I'm not sure if I quite buy that or not, but regardless, we're doing good. And if you look at the bottom, it's a 1 month. Comparing where we are now to where we were in 1 month, you see a lot of improvement across the state. And I apologize if there's noise coming through. They apparently have decided to set up some type of event right outside the glass door that I'm giving this webinar in. So I apologize for any noise. Looking at soil moisture, these are the mesonet gauges, and you can see up on the top we have Christian County and Warren County, and you can see that dryness from the drought we had in the fall. Soil moisture's got pretty low, and now with the rain over the past month and a half, you can see they have jumped back up and are pretty close. Christian County, they are back up to where we were in the summer when we would have that exceptionally wet weather, and Warren County a little bit behind that, but typically in the fall we aren't back up to where we are in spring yet. So pretty good shape. Same down at the bottom, Fayette County and Owsley County in eastern Kentucky. You can see again, precipitation levels are not precipitation levels, soil moisture levels have come back up and are in good shape. So like I said, overall, we are in great shape going into the winter. Um, so looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor, there is a lot of color on this map, a lot of drought throughout the country this right now. But you can see there is a bullseye right over Kentucky of where we are now drought free as of today. Last week we still had a little bit of D0 hanging around in eastern and western Kentucky, but that has been removed with the rain that we saw last week. And taking a closer look, you can see that we are completely free of drought. Looking at this is the 4-week change map. Um, you can see a lot of green in the Ohio Valley, not just over Kentucky, but also down in Tennessee, up in Ohio. And then also out in the West Coast, a lot of improvement out in the mountains in the Western U.S. But deepening drought up in the upper Midwest and also in Texas and down in the deep South. Taking a closer look at Kentucky, you can see a 3-category improvement down in Western Kentucky. That was in a month ago. That was in severe drought, and the 2-category change. Those are areas that were in moderate drought. So you can see a month ago we were still pretty dry. So lots of improvement over the past 4 weeks. So talking about that fall drought, you can see it was a very quick hitting and quick to leave drought. August 5th, we had just a tiny bit of D0 down in the Lake Cumberland area, and a month and a half later, we were in full-fledged drought. Really, most of central and western Kentucky were in some sort of drought, basically everybody but southeastern Kentucky. And out in western Kentucky, we had severe and even extreme D3 drought out there. And then a month later, all but gone. You can see, like, this is last week's map. You can see that little bit of D0 that was hanging along out in western Kentucky and in eastern Kentucky. Um, and I should say another fall drought, because if you remember, last year we had a drought that would actually kind of got started in late June. Um, and It started late June and kind of really didn't get going until we got into the fall. Um, and you see we again had pretty much the entire state in drought, and a couple areas of extreme drought. And 2 weeks later, drought was gone. And that was courtesy of Hurricane Helene. And then you go back 2 years. Guess what? We had another fall drought. Getting started. This one got started really in September, peaked in late November, and by winter was gone again. And then 2022, another quick hitting drought started in September, peaked the beginning of November, and we had severe and extreme drought in Western Kentucky, and by January it was gone. And again, 2019, extreme drought again, started real fast, peaked in the fall, and then it was gone once we got November. And 2016, again, another quick hitting fall drought, and got to some extreme drought. And again, once we got into winter, it was gone. So it's been a repeating pattern for the past decade or so that we've been getting these fall droughts. And I think as how I'm looking at it, as we're expecting a drought every fall right now until we get out of whatever pattern we're in. We're kind of just running under the assumption that we are going to see one, and if we don't, then good. But we're kind of preparing for them. But I would much rather see a drought in the fall than in the spring, because at least in the fall, with a time of year that we're typically drier, most of the crops are done for the year. And also less of a chance of an impact to water supplies compared to having one in the spring. So don't really have any ag impacts this month due to the shutdown. We usually get all our data from the USDA talking about harvest numbers. And so without those updates, we really don't have any information on how the harvest went, how crop yields went this year. So hopefully next month we'll have something. But what we can talk about is frost and freezes. We're in that time of year where we typically see our first frost. And if you at the look down at the bottom right, you can see when some of the National Weather Service locations see their first frosts and freeze. And first frost typically mid to late October. And then your first time we hit 32 degrees is late October to the beginning of November. And then first hard freeze below 28 degrees the first half of November. And so down below, try to match up mesonet sites to the closest ones to these locations. And you can see a lot of places saw their first frost back in late October, October 23rd, 24th. Lexington, that gauge, if you don't know where that one is, that mesonet station is, it's basically at the corner of Nicholasville and Manowar, close to the mall. So urban heating, it was a little warmer. So, but they had their first 36 degrees, which is when you could have a frost a couple days ago. And a lot of places some of the places saw their first 32-degree temperature on October 24th, 23rd as well. And then Pulaski County actually had their hard freeze on October 21st. They got down below 28 degrees. So if you look at those numbers or those dates and compare them to above, we're pretty much normal. We saw our first frost about the normal time, maybe a few days late. Same thing with the freeze. Um, as for hard freeze, you can see the dates are anywhere from November 1st to November 14th. And we are set to, looks like everybody will have their first hard freeze on November, I believe it's whatever Sunday is, November 9th, November 10th. It's looking like forecasted for most places getting down below 28 degrees. We could see some places down into the lower 20s even. So that should put an end to the growing season. I was just got an email from Matt Dixon before the webinar saying that the National Weather Service is discontinuing their frost freeze products for the year since most of the vegetation had already died off for the year. And I don't know about everybody else's yard. My yard, there are still some flowers that are hanging on, but for the most part, most of them had already gotten hit by one of the several frosts we've already had. So, but yeah, so about that time of year, and if you look at that picture up at the top there, that's from Nicholas County, and you can see the frost on the hillsides there. So about on time for the first frost and freeze. So, and we actually might pick up our first snow at the beginning of next week as well, especially in central and eastern Kentucky. So something to watch out for. It's that time of year, time for a winter. Looking at storm reports for the year, fairly quiet. You can see a lot of flooding up there in northern, where we were talking about that heavy rain. There's some flash flooding events. You see the tornado symbol there. That was in Nicholasville. That was actually a cold air funnel, which is similar to a tornado, but they form when you have some really cold air aloft, and they don't necessarily come from big thunderstorms, just from like a shower, and they typically stay up off the ground. But this one did come down and touch down, and once it does that, it becomes a tornado. And it was a very weak tornado, luckily, because it was in some highly populated area in Nicholasville. But yeah, so there was officially one tornado in October, and then we did have some stronger storms that went through southeast Kentucky. It did had a little bit of storm wind damage. Looking ahead at the 7-day forecast, this is a quantitative precipitation forecast. You can see We are going to see some rain, especially in central and eastern Kentucky, and most of that's going to come from the Friday night with the first of two cold fronts that's coming through. That's bringing that colder air next week. The ENSO outlook, we are officially in La Nina now, and that is projected to continue through into winter. As we get the late winter, spring, that's going to start to fade away, and we'll get replaced by likely neutral conditions. Looks like there's an increasing chance for El Nino once we get into summer, but the odds on is still uh, the neutral position. So, but that being something to keep an eye on as we get in the next year of whether we're going to have El Nino or neutral positions for next fall. Tropics are quiet. We're still technically in the hurricane season for the rest of the month. But we've been quiet ever since Melissa went through Jamaica and Cuba. Looking at our 6 to 10 outlooks, so this is November 11th through 15th. You can see pretty hot, pretty strong signal for cold air on the Atlantic coast. Kind of pulling, that's going to be that cold air that's through here early next week. So it's going to be moving off the coast, and looks like a big ridge of high pressure and warmer temperatures forecasted for the western United States. And a pretty strong signal for some dry conditions in our neck of the woods. Um, but with the rain that we've had and the rain that we're expecting this weekend, probably warrant or probably not an issue, going to be an issue. Going out to 8 to 14 day outlook, again, that warm signal starts sliding eastward, so it's going to be across the Midwest. So looks like the 13th through 19th, we're expecting some probably going to be some warmer temperatures here, and precipitation wise, we're going to be in between that below normal and above normal signal. So kind of equal chances, near normal precipitation. So maybe mid-November after that big cold snap we have next week, it's return to some warmer weather, or at least warmer for mid-November. I don't think need to break out your shorts or anything. Looking at November as a whole, really we're kind of straddling that line of leaning towards above normal temperatures or equal chances for warmer or below normal temperatures. And precipitation wise, we are going to be kind of sitting in that equal chance with the below normal precipitation down to our south. And the seasonal outlook is November through January, leaning towards above normal temperatures and still in that equal chance for precipitation. And that's really starting to get a La Nina look to it. Typically you see drier weather along in the deep south and along the Gulf Coast during La Nina, and then above normal precipitation along the northern tier, and then down into the Great Lakes and into our neck of the woods. And I don't have that map here, but the January through March outlook has the bullseye right on top of the Ohio Valley, including us, for above normal precipitation. So it looks like we're going to have potentially a wetter winter this year. Really looking at the ocean temperatures and the setup compared to last year, they're pretty much dead on where the ocean temperature was. So we may have kind of a repeat of last year, which was very wet, and also some pretty good cold snaps last year. So something to keep an eye on. You might, if you're like me and love snow, it might be another good winter. Looking at the monthly drought outlook, still expecting a lot of drought to persist really throughout the country, except for the Pacific Northwest. But our area, they are not expecting any drought to develop, so we should remain in good shape. Wildfire potential, nothing in Kentucky. Out in the mid-Atlantic there, West Virginia into Maryland, Pennsylvania. there's increased risk, and also down in the deep south and in Texas. But we should be in good shape. Now, with that, if we do get warmer, drier weather in November, in mid-November, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some small wildfires. That's kind of typical this time of year. We are in our fall wildfire season, so it wouldn't be atypical. But in terms of significant wildfire potential, that it doesn't look like that's going to be an issue. So, for to wrap things up, um, October was above normal, did see above normal precipitation and temperatures. And then after should be a record dry August, not a record day August, the above normal precipitation in September, October has eliminated any drought conditions in the state. Um, Much of the state has already experienced some frost or freeze, and we are expecting a hard freeze early next week, and that will end the growing season. And La Nina conditions are present and expected to continue in the early next year. And the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting equal chances for above and below normal precipitation for November and also for November through January. So that is all that I have. Just a reminder again that the next webinar will be December 4th at 2 p.m., 1 p.m. Central Time. And if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to reach out to Jerry at the Western Kentucky at the State Climate Center, or Matt Dixon at the UK Ag Weather Center, or myself here at the Division of Water. And I'll open it up if anybody has any questions.
Chip,
Yes.
hi, this is Kevin Jeffries from Oldham County.
Frozen dip to be simple.
Sorry, just was wondering about
20 minutes.
the
Enjoy
drought
building
in
the greatly
Lexington or
resembled world.
Fayette County this year. Was it? It was pretty substantial, wasn't it? I mean, they had a pretty dry summer.
Yeah. The Lexington area only got up to moderate drought D1. It probably could have gotten up to D2. The problem was but I think we were kind of looking at it being D2 when that rain hits, and it kind of stopped it. So it was a very, very intense, but very, very short-lived drought. So,
Okay. Okay.
kind of like it was everywhere. I mean, I live in Georgetown, and that's how it was. It was the lawns got torched. The trees started losing a little bit of some leaves, and then it rained, and then it rained
Yeah.
a lot. So
Okay. Yeah, I've
yeah,
got some friends that, that farm in that area and, they got hurt pretty hard by
yeah.
by the drought. And so we were lucky here in Oldham County. We had, pretty good rains all through the season. So, we were really wet early and then, just never did really get dry.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing is with it being so wet and then just flipping dry. It makes it difficult to really gauge the severity of the drought because you have indicators that are still picking up on all that wetness,
Right.
and so the soil's dried out very quickly, but hydrologically, his stream flows were still in pretty good shape.
Right.
So it's we've had a few of those the past few years, so it's
Right. And one other question, and you might not be able to answer this, but are there 80 Mesonet sites now online? I know a couple more came on here just recently.
I believe so. The one in Trimble County just came online,
Right. Hmm.
and then there's one more coming.
I think we're
Tiffany,
up to 84 now online.
84. Okay, great.
The last one we haven't finished building out yet will be 85.
Okay. Well, we might get to over 120 here before.
Yeah, we're trying.
Okay, thank you.
no problem. Anybody else? All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming to the webinar, and we will see you next month for the December one, which is kind of hard to believe that we're already almost, we're going to be in December. Everybody have a good day, and try to stay warm next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chip.